Hi there, my name is Julio Canedo. I'm gonna take a few minutes to introduce myself and go through this brief presentation that I have prepared for you to show my ideas on how employees can deliver the results that the organization expects. Um, so let me just go through. That's me. I'm an engineer. I'm an electronic and computers engineer. Also, I have an MBA in human resources, and later in my career, I completed a PhD degree in business. And I took a two window process, and I went through strategy and HR. I like the combination of both, and I believe that it's very exciting to work with the strategy and with HR. I am also certified in coaching in ethics and human resource management. I was an HR manager myself and director for over 10 years. Also, I work in a university in student affairs for perhaps 4 years. I was a software engineer a couple of years. And finally, I've been doing HR consulting and teaching, researching in HR strategy for the last 15 years. I have a number of publications and presentations in human resource management, strategic human resource management, leadership coaching, performance, cultural differences. Those are topics that are of my interest in terms of research. So let me just go through organizational functioning. Basically, we're going to split organizational functioning into on one side, we have a strategy formulation that is usually done the top management team, the CEO, and those reporting to him or her get together, not very often, probably once a week, once a year, and they discuss where the organization should go. What is the vision? What is the dream for the organization? Where it should go? Some long-term targets, and also some shorter term, usually year term uh, goals for the organization. And once this is done, the strategy is deployed to the organization, and then comes the other stage in organizational function, and the other side, the strategy execution side. Usually, organizations are good, pretty good, I would say, in formulating a strategy. No big deal there. They sometimes bring in consultants, and they help facilitating the process of identifying the strategies to move the organization into the future. And then strategy execution usually is conducted through the organizational hierarchy. Goals are cascaded down throughout the organization, and it is expected that the goals are reached. The problem is this is not the case in most of the times, and some of the symptoms that you can identify in your company, if you see this, you're probably already on your way to deliver poor results. Job dissatisfaction, absenteeism, turnover, ambiguity, overload, underload, people not having clear, not having certain what they are expected to deliver. If they're having any type of conflict, or family conflict, or family life conflict. If the supervisors are not well trained, if you move people from technical positions to supervisory positions with no training, if they are overloaded, if the trust is broken in the organization. In the end, any of these, and there are many more, I just listed a few, but there are many other symptoms that you can identify, and probably once you can sense this, once you can see this going on, it's very likely the organization is already going through low productivity and poor results, and then in the end delivering results that were not those defined as goals and the formulation strategy stage of the organizational function. In the end, what is the goal of any organization? The end is to satisfy stakeholders. And by stakeholders, I mean anyone who has anything invested in the organization: stockholders, clients, government, community, suppliers, employees, etc. The question is this possible? I mean, can whatever organization actually satisfy all of these stakeholders? It's complicated because many of these holders, the interests that they have, they conflict each other. For example, employees will always wish better pay, more salary, more benefits, and that's going to conflict probably with clients who are going to push for lower prices. So if you have lower prices, you have less income, then you have less money available to increase salaries, etc., etc. So just an example, but all of the stakeholders' goals usually conflict with each other. So the question is, If I cannot satisfy all of them, then where do I start? Well, this is my approach. One way, the way that I prefer to see this is by analyzing how the organization influences stakeholders. And I'm gonna do this by thinking on two variables: the environment in which the stakeholder belongs compared to the organization. It can be inside the organization, internal environment, it can be outside the organization, the external environment. And also in the y variable, in the y-axis, I am plotting the influence that the organization has on the stakeholder, how much the organization can influence that stakeholder. So let us take a look. For example, clients. Clients usually belong in the external environment, and the organization in a competitive environment, in a free or close to free market, is going to have low influence in the client. I mean, there are some particular circumstances, some particular markets in which the influence is going to be high. For example, if you run a monopoly, if you are one big player in the market, then probably you're going to have high influence. But in a regular free market, the influence is going to be low. Another stakeholder, suppliers. Suppliers usually belong to in the external environment of the organization, and the influence they have, the organization has on the supplier, again, is going to be high or low depending on how many clients that supplier has. So, for example, if that supplier sells only and exclusively to this company, then the company is going to have a big influence on the supplier. But if the supplier has a number of clients, he or she, they will not care of anything that the organization wants to force, for example, on them. So that depends on how the networking of the supplier works. The community usually is the one in which the organization has the lowest influence and clearly belongs in the external environment. Another stakeholder, the government, there's some variation, but I would say in general, they belong outside the organization, and the influence the organization can have on them, it's pretty low. I know there are companies, big companies, that invest a lot of money in lobbying and may actually have high influence in the government and probably even shape the creation of new laws, etc., etc. But in general, that's not the case. Stockholders depends on the composition. If the stockholders work inside the organization, if it's a decision maker inside the organization, just an investor, if it is a public traded company, if it is a private company, a number of variables playing here. So the influence and where the stockholder belongs depends on a number of variables. And then finally, we have the employees. No question, I mean, clear to me, the employees, at least in their roles as employees, they belong in the internal environment. They are inside the organization. And so the organization has a high influence on them through the processes, the systems, the pay system, the reward system, whatever system put in place into the organization is going to influence the employees too. The influence also happens the other way. The employees actually shape, for example, organizational culture, a number of policies and processes put in place. But so it is bidirectional. But what is clear is that the organization is going to exercise some influence on the employees. So let's think a little bit about it and ask this question: what determines an organization's success? Give it 2-3 seconds. What determines an organization's success? Maybe a number of variables, right? It's complicated. It's very complicated. But I can say organization's success depends on its results. Whatever results the organization produces is going to be strongly linked to the success of the organization. And what is success? Well, each organization has a way of defining that. It can be survival, it can be market share, it can be profit, revenue, number of employees, etc., etc., etc. Organizations are no other thing, organizational results are no other thing than the summation of individual results. Whatever each individual produces adds up to the next level and to the next level and so on until we have organizational results. So I believe it is worth spending time, and I have spent years analyzing the idea of results at the individual level. Okay, how they aggregate in the organization is a different story. But now I am concerned, I am focused on results at the individual level, because we know, I think we can agree, the summation of individual results produces organizational results. So the question is, what produces individual results? Well, according to research practices and a number of sources that I have studied over years, I can tell you organizational individual results are a consequence of three variables. Only three: alignment, empowerment, and motivation. Alignment, empowerment, and motivation. And so if we focus on these three variables, if we can create, as organizations, we were saying organizations have influence on employees. So if the organization can, using its processes, its systems, create the conditions for every single individual in the organization to be aligned, empowered, and motivated, the chances we have of increasing results improve. And we can begin speaking about what I call organizational fitness. What is organizational fitness? Well, similar to being fit, we as humans, my idea of organizational fitness is for the organization to create the conditions that make it possible that each individual in the organization is aligned, empowered, and motivated. What is the question to be answered in alignment? The question is the individual delivering the results the organization expects him or her to deliver? Are the expected outcomes, those outcomes that the individual believes the organization expects from him and her, the outcomes the organization actually expects? Is there a disagreement in there? What the organization sees, what the individual sees, are those aligned? Or is there a misalignment? If there's a misalignment, we're going to have trouble. If they're aligned, we have 1 out of 3. The expectation of the organization for that particular position should be the same expectation in terms of outcomes that the individual occupying the position has. That is alignment. So we need to work on that. We need to make sure those two are aligned. Number one. Number two, empowerment. Empowerment means that the individual has the capabilities, that the individual has the knowledge, the skills, the competencies to deliver, the training, that the individual can deliver. That is empowerment. And then finally, motivation. Motivation is wishing to do it. To be engaged, to be motivated to deliver. So alignment means doing the right thing, the right way. Empowerment, that I can do it, and motivation, that I want to do it. If we have these three, if we work on these three, we increase the chances of improving individual and team results. If we increase individual and team results, then we are going to increase organizational results. And over time, if we do this cycle after cycle, we are creating a culture of orientation to results, which is the ultimate goal. That's organizational fitness. So, what are the objectives of this methodology? To empower and motivate employees to deliver strategic results in the short term. In the long term, to create and sustain a results-driven culture. How do we do this? Well, there's a methodology. But I can tell you it has to deal with the strategic intent of the organization, with creating a model of strategic values and competencies, identifying these, with creating a dictionary of competencies, and then using this to identify and define job profiles. These job profiles have the expected outcomes that the position needs to deliver. And for each of these expected outcomes, the behaviors the individual in that position need to exhibit to produce those outcomes. And for each behavior, the competencies the individual needs for being able to actually produce those behaviors. So we made this connection: expected outcomes, what behaviors need to be exhibited, what competencies are needed to exhibit those behaviors. Once we have that, that is the meat, that is the beef, that is the main, that is the nucleus. Once we have this for each single position, we can make a lot of beautiful things. We can create a talent acquisition system that is aligned with this. We're bringing people having the right competencies for the right position. The internal movements and career system can change, that we made the right assignments. We can modify the results and performance, and be aware that I speak of results and performance system. I don't say the performance system. Results is an outcome, performance is a behavior. We can create an assessment system that helps identify gaps in the competencies that the individual needs for performing properly the position the individual is holding at present time, and then creating a training and development individualized program for that single individual to reach the levels of development that that individual needs for that specific position he or she needs. Or we can also, if we identify somebody as a high potential and we want him for a certain position in the future in 4 or 5 years, create a training and development specific particular development system for that single individual to increase his or her chances to reach that position. I'm not saying you're going to reach it. I'm not saying you're going to give it, but you increase the chances. And also the reward system. The reward system is so important. Are you paying in agreement with the rest of the system? What is your reward system rewarding? We need to take a look at that. And then finally, I would say all of this needs to be put in some technology. We need software to do this. I work on the processes. I work on doing all that is inside the red square down there, and I can help the organization identify the best technology to fit the rest of the other systems the company has. But I focus on the process. I don't sell technology. I focus on the processes and the system. And that's it. So hopefully you enjoy the presentation. If you got a question or something to share, perhaps please reach out to me. There's a website page over there, and you can see the information email at the bottom of each slide. That's it.